Uh-oh.
It's time for the Early Bird Special. Bringing you the best stories from the world of sports and sports entertainment. Now, here are your hosts, Sparky and Burdick.
Well, good morning, Bakersfield and surrounding communities, and everybody watching online and on YouTube. This is the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That's Sparky. Sparky!
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, my friend. Let them know what they got going today.
We'll definitely talk Masters. We'll have Bolt Brady at the top of the next hour talking Masters as well, and the best bets to make. And we'll also talk Tyreek.
Again.
But this time we have the 911 call.
So you could determine for yourself, was mom overreacting or was Tyreek actually having another tirade?
And
we'll see.
More things about the draft. Not only Shador and Cam, which is pretty much the headlines of any sports show or sports headlines, but we'll also get into the NBA. We'll talk about the Hall of Fame. We'll talk SmackDown. And we'll also wrap up the show on what we are watching going into the weekend. We're a little over a week away from WrestleMania.
Correct.
We've got a jam-packed show today. And let's get into Masters. How are you looking?
Well, let's just say this. I would say pundits and experts were correct. Your top dogs are top dogs at the moment. Justin Rose is the current leader. He is teed off already for day 2. Currently sits at 8 under through 3. The rest of the field, you got Connor, Scheffler, and Aberg all tied for second at 4 under. Hatton, DeChambeau, my favorite, are tied for 5th with 3 under, and a grip of the rest of these guys are tied at 7th and 14th at 2 and 1 under. But as it sits right now, the main stories of the day, obviously Scotty Scheffler still in the race, and just the ability he has to turn it on in day 2 is turning people's heads. We'll see how he does. He is scheduled to start at a 10:23 tee-off time. And unfortunately, Rory McIlroy has fallen off a little bit. He had a terrible, terrible end to the round yesterday with 2 double bogeys, I apologize, on 15 and 17 to drop him to even. He was 4 under at the time. And that is, I believe, where he currently sits. I do not believe he has teed off yet. He has not. He tees off here momentarily, actually. He should be, if not already.
And as a new golf watcher, I guess, would you say? I mean, it was all right the first day of watching golf, but I know after today they cut it down to 50.
Correct.
And I think that's when I'll probably enjoy it a little bit more, when I'm not waking up at 4 a.m. And
yes, as Sparky just said, the projected cut for today is set at 2 under at the moment. That will most likely fluctuate as the day goes on. Day 2 has a way of, it's really a make or break day. Either you're going to bounce back like Rory McIlroy is very well known to do in day 2s, although he did miss the cut last time he was here. This time he could potentially have what he usually does and have a great day 2 at the Masters, turning his entire run around and maybe putting him back at the top leaderboards. As it sits right now, Justin Rose holds a 4-stroke lead over the entire group, and he is very, very confident. I want to hear from him from last night in this press conference and how he was feeling throughout round 1. So let's hear from Justin.
Middle of the back 9, I felt like there were a couple of moments where the momentum could have changed, but really good up and downs on 14 and 15 to keep the round really hot. And yeah, obviously the only blemish on 18, but there's no point dwelling on that. I think it was a really good day's golf on a golf course that was a stern test. I think if you look at the overall leaderboard, not many low scores out there. So you had to hit a lot of quality shots, and delighted with the way I played.
Posting I believe, career high 8 birdies in his first round at the Masters yesterday. He looked fantastic. Ended the entire round 7 under. Again, sits 8 under currently for the day through 4. So it looks like the momentum he has built is continuing. Whether he will have a similar day or not, we will see. Consistency is key if you want to win the Masters. But when you look at it, you still have the league leader, Scotty Scheffler, the number 1 golfer in the world, right on your heels. He's 4 shots away, but he hasn't teed off yet. So we'll see how that goes. And again, I'm going to still ride with my boy Bryson DeChambeau. Fantastic momentum he has coming into this. Won the U.S. Open coming into this. He's got a lot on his plate, but he can make it happen for the Live Tour guys. Currently sitting at 3 under with a tee-off time of 7:15 this morning. So he will be teeing off here momentarily as well. At this point, though, I think it is probably a solid 6-man race for the title. I don't see a lot of these guys bouncing upwards in day 2 of the Masters. A lot of them you'll see separating from the pack, I think Rose will be one of those guys, along with the 2 I just mentioned. Also, Ludwig Aberg making a very, very interesting push in the Masters. Now, mind you, I believe last year finished 2nd in the tournament, so he has had a pretty good record here as well. The protege, as they like to call him in the golf world right now. Whether he continues this, we will see. He is teed off as well, so it could be a really interesting race here in day 3, Sparky.
And he's 4 under?
He is currently 4 under, tied with Scheffler for 2nd, along with Mr. Connors from Canada. So
I'm going with Scheffler.
You sticking with Scheffler?
I'm sticking with Scheffler, and this is what Scheffler had to say after day 1.
It definitely wasn't easy out there. The greens were starting to firm up. It's definitely going to be a firm Masters this year. And, I thought I was playing pretty tough out there. Did a good job of managing my way around the course. Like you said, kept the card clean with no bogeys. And that making no bogeys around here, you're always going to have a pretty good score. It's nice having the success here. It's great having the success around the golf course. That's something I can lean on mentally out there. But at the end of the day, everybody starts to even par. The last couple of tournaments don't matter. There's a group of guys in the golf course we got to try and beat this week, and that's what I'm focused on.
And if you're watching Masters, shoot in your favorites to win anytime during the show, 7 to 9 a.m., right here at 661-842-2000.
Yes.
I know we had our first text of the morning, and he is taking.
Ooh, what we got? Come on now.
We've got Scheffler, Watson, and Reed.
Okay.
This 3 he's going with.
Bubba Watson, I like that pick. I mean, you could always cheer for a guy like Bubba Watson. Obviously, he's kind of like the Phil Mickelson situation right now. He's gotten up there in age, but you love to see guys like that still succeed at the PGA level. So it would be an interesting situation. I think Scotty Scheffler is definitely the safest pick for the entire thing, besides obviously taking the leader. But for those of you who are wondering, last time that
I was just going to ask you that. When's the last time somebody led on day 1 and
won the whole thing? Okay, so this does not happen often at all. In fact, it's only happened 4 times from what I can tell with my research. And I have to apologize to the Greg Kerr show because I gave him a bit of false information yesterday. I thought in my research and doing this for yesterday, I had actually found the answer to this, which was technically 84 and Ben Crenshaw.
Yeah.
I was mistaken. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm a little bit of a casual fan of golf, as most of you are as well. So I'll follow, but I don't remember a lot of certain things that have happened the last couple of years. But it has actually happened twice since then. One being Trevor Immelman in 2008, who was actually a huge underdog to win this as well that year. Probably the biggest underdog to win the Masters in recent history. And then Jordan Spieth back in 2015 did this as well. So it has happened in recent years. But does this happen often? No, not at all. So the likelihood of Justin Rose pulling this out and keeping his 4-stroke lead over the rest of the pack, very unlikely.
I was going to say, I wonder what those leads were.
I'd have to go back and look.
4.
Spieth's, I believe, was about this big. It was about 3 to 4 strokes, but I could be wrong again. I apologize to Kyle Kerr because I fed you a little bit of misinformation. It's not misinformation, but it is misinformation because you guys asked for the last person who did it. That was Jordan Spieth in 2015. I gave you what I believed was the last person to do it, which was Ben Crenshaw back in the 80s. But again, you weren't technically wrong, but we were wrong. It is what it is. But at this point, Day 2, Augusta National is underway. We'll give you updates on that throughout the day. But there are some great fun stories to come out of this, Sparky, that we have to mention, including my baseball GOAT is a photographer at the Masters.
Barry Bonds is?
No. What? No. Take that nonsense out of here, Sparky. That is shenanigans. That is 1,000% shenanigans. No, the baseball... Shenanigans! That's right, Kyle. That's right. Shenanigans. No, the baseball GOAT, Ken Griffey Jr., is on site at the Masters as a professional photographer for themasters.com. It's a fantastic thing to see. I love seeing this man out in the world because you don't get to see him very often. I actually had the pleasure of meeting his son as well when he was frequenting the University of Arizona and playing football there. He's a fantastic guy. And actually was teammates with Rob Gronkowski too. Just shameless name plug. But it is cool to see because I was reading up on this and why he's been doing this. He's an avid fan of photography and has been his entire life. However, what brought this about was actually the fans, and not in the way that some of you may be thinking. So Ken Griffey Jr. essentially says that he kind of got tired of people always running up to him and, begging for pictures and begging for, autographs and stuff like that when he's out and about in public. And it even got to a point where he was with his daughter one day who was playing, and she looks up and had a just look on her face of, oh, here we go again. Dad's got a million people around him. And he inevitably just said, you know what? I'm tired of this. I want a little bit of freedom, right? So, Sparky, what's the one person at a sporting event you do not mess with, period? The photographers.
Oh, yeah.
They're
busy.
Say
security, but yeah.
Well, yes, absolutely. But no, it's the photographers. The photographers need their time, their quiet, their patience, their absolute focus on the camera to get the best pictures possible. So what does Ken Griffey Jr. do? Goes and becomes a photographer for sporting events. So now he is working with the Masters right now as a photographer to get the best shots. And he even says it's great because no one messes with him. No one comes up and talks to him except for apparently the athletic guy who wanted to go up and get an interview or two. But at this point, I appreciate that athletics reporter because this is a fantastic little peace story for golf, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's difficult to not walk by Ken Griffey or see Ken Griffey and not want to ask him a question or two. But
it's the
guy can't just enjoy retirement.
I mean, look, man, I don't think anybody can when you're an athlete or a celebrity. When you are above us normal peons,
super competitive, and
yeah, you're gonna get a lot of people, especially people like me. I remember when Griffey Jr. came down here when Griffey Sr. was coaching the team and on Father's Day and stuff like that. We had a massive crowd just to come see Jr. I mean, we all love Sr. Don't get me wrong. He was the coach, but we got to see him all the time. Everybody was there to see Jr. I was there to see Jr. Did I get a chance to see Jr.? No, I did not get a chance to see the kid because there was such a line wrapped around the place that, yeah, I did not have time to sit and wait in that line. However,
prettiest swing ever.
Absolutely. And it's just, that's the life that you have to live as a celebrity, really, because that's what these athletes are, especially when you're done and retired. You're a celebrity now. Most of you talk on television. Most of you get run up on just to get a picture taken. Like, you're a celebrity. And unfortunately, that's just the life you're going to have to live because fanatics are, well, fanatics.
Exactly.
So
I wonder if those concession stands are still pretty damn cheap.
Oh, from what I've been seeing at the Masters, yeah. I mean, $2 apple slices, $1 waters. Like,
I just after you told me that yesterday, I heard it at the end of Eisen's show yesterday, and he was talking about, well, you can only, you can eat with a $5 bill for the whole day.
You can feed your whole family with $20 at the Masters. But that's not how they get you, Sparky. And I'm glad you brought this up. Let's take a quick break and pay some bills. On the other side of the break, I'm going to present the second of the funny stories to you out of three. Have you ever thought, what's the most expensive piece of Masters memorabilia on the planet? Because there's a lot of them. And I'm going to tell you right now, Tiger Woods is at the center of most of them.
Of course.
So we'll explain what those pieces are and how you could potentially get them on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Early Bird Special on 101.1 FM, 1230 AM, ESPN Bakersfield, and streaming live online at the YouTube special. I'm sorry, at the Early Bird Special on YouTube. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Not any better way to start your day than this.
I agree.
So smooth. Welcome back to the early bird special. I'm Chris Burdick, not Sparky. Before we talk or went to break, we talked about this a little bit. Masters memorabilia. Now, the concession stands we've been talking about for the last couple of days are cheap and always will be cheap, and that's the best thing about the Masters if you're going to frequent and actually check out this thing. $2 apple slices, you can't beat that. But at this point right now, my biggest question is, well, how do they end up making the amount of money they make every single year at the Masters if you don't make it off the concession stands like everybody else? Well, obviously, you have to make it off of your memorabilia and all of your merchandise. Most people will just go and buy whatever they see with a Masters logo on it, and they don't even watch a dang stroke of golf, for lack of a better term. There are a lot of people that have Masters memorabilia that they don't even know is Masters memorabilia because someone they know went to Augusta, bought a T-shirt, and said, "Here, I went to the Masters," and they said, "What the heck is the Masters?" But at this point right now, I was just very curious what the most expensive piece of Masters memorabilia is. Now, obviously, there's a massive difference between memorabilia and merchandise. We're not talking about the most expensive jacket that you can go buy that looks exactly like the green jacket. That's not at all what we're talking about here. We're talking about pieces of history within golf that have been auctioned off and essentially or put up in some sort of form of museum. And these things have gone for some ridiculous prices, including, if any of you know, the 2001 Masters run by Tiger. They have the entire iron set for that was sold for $5.2 million in 2022. That is a ridiculous amount of money for a pair of golf clubs. However, when you actually look at the golf club, which I thought was interesting, I can't remember which iron it was, or maybe it was a lob wedge. I can't remember, but there's a little pit every time you obviously make contact with a golf ball. When you look at Tigers, it is the exact size of a golf ball, meaning this man never hit that ball outside of where he was supposed to. That is incredible. That is more of like that needs to be in a museum to really just show everybody how good of a golfer Tiger Woods was, Sparky.
Well, as a collector, I was doing some research during the break, and one of the highest Masters memorabilia that's ever been sold was the inaugural 1934 Masters entrance badge that was signed by Bobby Jones, Horton Smith, and others, that sold for more than $470,000 on a golf auction. It is the second highest price for any sporting ticket that's ever sold in an auction, only topped by a ticket for the Jackie Robinson's debut game,
which obviously is going to go higher. I mean,
of
it's
course.
Jackie. But for those of you who don't know, everybody knows about the green jacket that these winners get when you actually finish as first place at the Masters. It's essentially, for those of you who don't know, is an all green blazer that is given to the winner. That if you've seen Happy Gilmore, it's
just like Shooter was fighting over.
The Shooter golden jacket situation is the exact same thing for the Masters, but it's green. But they also receive a pin or a gold coin, I think is what they do now, rather than the pin, that celebrates that you have been here, you are a member of the tournament, obviously, and can come back and play at any point in time. Other things that you can look into as well. Let's see here. The Augusta National Design plans for American Corner on golf or on hole 12. You want to know what that went for, Sparky?
How much was it?
$272,000.
What?
That's just the blueprints for par 12 of the Masters. That, like,
are you kidding me?
We have to remember that this is a rich man's sport.
I was going to say people are just burning money.
Well, again, all of these are at auction, so they're going to get up there in ridiculous fashion because obviously you have fanatics of golf that are very, very wealthy.
So as a fan, is there like trophies and stuff that
there
they've
are
sold
trophies,
over the years?
Absolutely. I mean, again, you can get your own commemorative green jacket, obviously. But again, the golden medallions are another thing that you could look out for that we just mentioned. It's all just stuff that you're going to have to find somebody who doesn't want theirs anymore. It's much like a Super Bowl ring when you kind of like, you sit there at a pawn shop, say, no way, that's not the real thing. It could be the real thing, people.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, all of these go off at auction all the time. A lot of these people don't want to hold on to it, or they have no reason to hold on to it because they have multiple. So
Like the convict that's playing, or the guy that's sitting at the bottom of the list right now.
Yeah.
I wonder if he gets his entrance badge and then he gets
that's actually an interesting
kicked
story.
out to later today, and then he sells it.
I want to make sure I speak of correctness here.
I could totally see that a golfer that just didn't make the cut, and he's like, you know what, this badge that I'm wearing that got me into this thing, I'm just gonna go home or hit the pawn shop on the way home.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, there's a golfer currently playing in the PG or in the Masters right now who just served a 30-month term in jail. His name is Angel Cabrera, who,
of course, it's Angel,
was arrested because two former girlfriends were accused him of domestic abuse. And he was also dodging some stuff while he was playing golf. He actually had left Mexico to dodge some stuff while coming up here to play the Open, and then went back down. He was he was then arrested in Brazil not too long ago, and is back and is now in this tournament because he's a former champion of the Masters. And being a former champion of the Masters, you get an automatic bid. So can
not only
is whenever
convict, which he did his time, but he can play in the Masters at any time now.
At any point in time, yeah, he could bid himself into the Masters. Now, after a certain age, obviously they're going to look at you and say, maybe not.
Does he have the tear tattooed under his eye?
I have no idea.
Now that would be hilarious.
That would be funny. Seeing a golfer with a tattoo, a tear. Oh my God. But yeah, so that has actually been a very polarizing story as well. I didn't want to get into it because I didn't know fully exactly what's going on with that yet. Bolt Brady, our boy from Bolt Brady and his bro, talked about it on his podcast, so we can ask him because I'm sure he is well more knowledgeable in the situation than I. But yes, there is technically some controversy in that area in the golf world too, because God only knows what this guy's hearing while he's playing golf right now, if he is honestly dealing with this. And then real quick, for you Tiger fans out there, if you really, 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 really want that red shirt that Tiger wore, that is part of the memorabilia as well.
Of course. How much is that?
$139,000, $140K if you can actually afford that. So if you want to go look it up, The Athletic has a fantastic list of all of the major Masters memorabilia you can see and potentially bid on at some point in your life. But unless you got ducats upon ducats, it does not appear that anybody's going to be able to afford some memorabilia from the golf world, at least. Maybe you can get a signed basketball for Michael Jordan for maybe $200.
Yeah, right.
Somewhere. And then real quick, the last story that I have to mention as well, Fred Couples becomes the second oldest golfer to ever break par at the Masters at 65 years old. That is fantastic.
Good
man.
For him. That's awesome.
65 and still slugging it with the youngins, man. And again, they have a PGA seniors tour for this exact reason, for guys who reach that point in their careers.
Well, that's funny that you say that, because I was watching Sports Center this morning while I was getting ready, and that's the announcer had said the time that you'll see Tiger is when the senior tour comes out,
and he dominates the senior tour. I have to agree with that as well. Although, again, he could just hang it up. He could really just be that guy and say, you know what? I've done enough of this. I'm going to help Charlie get better at this and help my daughter get better at whatever she wants to get better at. Because I do think that at this point in Tiger's life, he might want to focus more on the family side of it, everything. You know what I mean? Like when he's grown up in the limelight in which he has been in the center of everybody's attention in the golf world since he was literally 8 years old. Sometimes you want to detach from that.
I know he's put his time into training and helping building other courses. So, I mean, he's going to stay busy. When your name's Tiger Woods, I don't think he'll be bored.
No, not at all. And again, go check out the patch at Augusta National if you want to go check out a short course and potentially play on it as well. It's supposed to be open to the public, I believe, starting in 2026, 2027 area. So if you're a massive golf fan, I would go check that out because that could be really cool to play adjacent to Augusta National.
Well, after this break, we're going to get into this Tyreek Hill story. It's a little crazy turn into it, and the NFL is actually going to be investigating it. I know yesterday we talked about that there was no filed case against him, that he was going to walk away, but it doesn't look like the NFL is just going to let him walk.
No, but can I just say this? I feel bad for the man. I feel bad for Tyreek a little bit with this story because from what we've seen, it really shouldn't be anything.
Yeah, just an argument. But when you're a star and you stay up on social media,
And
they're
as
going to jump all over you.
And as we said with John Morant, when you have a past of things that kind of leads people to certain directions about your personality, unfortunately, it's hard to shake those things.
And we got some news on Ja as well. And an older quarterback just signed a new contract with the Cleveland Browns. We'll talk that and much more on the Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. And welcome back to the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burke. That's Sparky. Spark, we got to dive a little deeper into this Tyreek Hill story. I know we mentioned it yesterday at a point, but obviously Tyreek's got himself in some hot water again with this domestic dispute between him and his soon-to-be ex-wife
Yep.
that was called in on by mama-in-law,
Baby mama.
baby mama's mama-in-law. Or no, I'm sorry, baby mama's mama. Baby mama's
Baby
mama's
mama drama.
right?
Yes.
Somewhere in that area.
She called the cops as well, or she said she was scared for her grandchild. Anybody that's been in a relationship, fights happen. So immediately when you're a superstar like somebody like Tyreek Hill, of course it hits TMZ, it hits all the sports headlines. And they said that there was no files charged. It was just followed up with the divorce paperwork. And then later yesterday, the NFL said, after the Dolphins came out and said, well, it looks like nothing happened, we're going to move forward, case closed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the NFL is going to now look into it as a conduct policy that they, if they can find something that would benefit or would say, Tyreek's going to probably get suspended for a game or two or get fined because he's had a history with conduct policy. But they were waiting to hear from this 911 call, but obviously right after that, TMZ releases the 911 call. It is a bit long, so I cut it up in two.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the first call.
Tyreek Hill. Going crazy.
Is that correct? Is this a house or an apartment?
Condo. Help me.
What is going on?
I can't go out there.
Okay, is she injured needing fire rescue?
No. He's screaming at her right now.
Okay, who is he?
He's trying to fill us out and the baby.
Who is she? Who is...
Hurry. His parents are going to come over here.
Okay, stay on the line with me.
I'm scared.
Stay on the line with me.
He's got a white beater on and I think shorts or something.
So he pretty much after the first call, she's just saying, they're fighting. He's worried. She's worried about the.
Can I point something
the
out
baby?
here, though?
Yes.
I get that this is a very serious situation. She's clearly shaken up and scared
Yeah, she
about
was
this
scared.
situation. But the only person I hear screaming in the background is your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't hear Tyreek getting heavy.
So the 911 call was a little over 8 minutes.
Yeah, this is a long call.
She was super scared. You can hear the baby mama fighting and yelling and screaming in the background most of the call. But what the meat of this story is, they have a 4-month child.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big story last season. She was pregnant sitting at the games and, he proposed to her after the game and they'd right in the mid-season, they got married and all this. And not only dealing with an injury, it just dragged on and on, just like Tyreek likes it. But, 4 months later, they've had the baby, the post-baby drama. And later in that call, she pretty much points out that she was scared more for the baby and for herself, as Tyreek mentions that his parents were coming to back him up.
What are we going to do? This is awful. Oh, well. Oh, my God. Let me see if I can hear anything from my.
Let me know when the police get there, ma'am.
Wait a minute.
So we can hear Tyreek just talking.
No, you did it. You're mean. You're mean.
And then he gets into it with the mom.
I am.
Ma'am, don't intervene with him, ma'am.
He has the baby. You're not going to do this. You don't push me. You push me in my video. Yes, you did. It's crazy. And I don't care. He has the baby. He just did it back because he knows I'm on the phone with y'all.
Who has the baby?
He had her. He just gave it to someone out there. Now they're blaming me for calling the police. They might
It's okay.
try to beat me up.
You did right. You did it.
His mom's going to come up here and beat me up.
Nobody's going to go beat you up, ma'am. Just go ahead and make sure you tell the
You
police.
can hear him, man. So he's like trying to calm it down because he knows y'all are here and he's going to lose his career over this. I mean, where are y'all? Girl, I'm so scared.
Ma'am, just stay on the line with me. They're going as fast as they can, okay?
Okay, this is awful.
What is going on right now, ma'am?
He's yelling about the baby because I called the police. Now he's trying to call me because he thinks y'all can hear him. He didn't know I had called. I'm not coming out of this room. He's trying to get me to come out the room. He's probably no telling. His family's here now. The family's here, and they're saying if there's anybody got any proof, there ain't no proof. They're all here now. The family. Where's the police? His family got here before y'all did.
The police still isn't there, ma'am?
No, his parents
Okay.
are. No, I think the police are here. I'm not coming out. They want me to come. I'm scared. I can hear the police. I'm scared.
Just stay on the line with me, ma'am.
You said, hold on. You said, I want to throw my baby off the balcony? You said, I want to throw my baby?
I didn't say never throw nothing. Yo,
Ma'am,
I'm
is
not
that the
going to go
police?
for this.
So this is when she
Should I hang up now?
mentions that, you know, she was scared that Tyreek was going to put the baby over the balcony, kind of pull the Michael Jackson thing we joked around yesterday about. But I kind of agree with you. You know, I kind of feel bad for the guy because if anybody has had an ex when the mom gets involved and then it's 2-on-1 and they make all these accusations and then you're kind of backed into a corner. I love Tyreek as a football player. The personal stuff is his personal stuff. So I'm kind of with you where I kind of feel bad for the guy because they blew up this story before they got the facts.
And obviously, because again, the background of what Tyreek has done with his outbursts of violence and stuff like that, it is not a far-fetched situation to believe that this would be the case. However, this time, yeah, I'm not 100% sure on how this actually went down. It doesn't seem to me like Tyreek, again, we weren't there, nor is there video of this, so we really can't say. But from that call right there, all I heard was just a very concerned grandmother who may have been, I mean, not overreacting, but may have thought the situation was headed somewhere that it wasn't.
Yeah.
And arguably, this is why I feel that everybody should just hold off on
Get the facts.
Yeah, get the straight facts first. But I do kind of feel bad for Tyreek in this situation because it doesn't seem to me like that was actually headed that way. I don't think Tyreek would actually endanger any of his kids.
No, I don't see him like that.
As much as we love to say that a lot of these athletes do dumb stuff in terms of being with their spouses, that's 100% true. Obviously, we've seen it in many situations, but that doesn't mean all of them are. And a vast majority of these gentlemen are actually great fathers to their kids. So let's not pretend like Tyreek Hill has done that to his children.
Yeah, he doesn't have a criminal background towards that, but it's been more of fighting with his past girlfriends.
Right.
So we're not going to get into any deeper into this because we don't have the facts.
Right.
But at the end of the day, no one was injured. His wife was.
It's nice to know that police response time is slow everywhere around the U.S. Not just here in Bakersfield. It's nice to know that. Sorry.
Oh,
I had to throw that out there.
Well, keeping it in the in the law, former Texas wide receiver and NFL draft prospect Isaiah Bond turned himself in on an outstanding sexual assault warrant yesterday morning. Bond was released from the Collin County Jail after posting bail of $25,000. He did later in the day went on his Instagram, of course, and said, the whole thing is false. Bond was and still is projected as a second-round draft pick. The last mock draft I saw, he was going to the Panthers at 57.
That's the last I saw as well. Although with this entire situation, he will drop. This isn't a superstar wide receiver coming out. This is probably the 10th best receiver in the draft. I expect him to drop at least a round or two because of this, because we don't know, again, much like the Tyreek Hill situation, don't know the full story. We don't know if this is true or not. He is adamantly denying all of it, saying that he had nothing to do with the situation. But for all we know, until the full story comes out, he could be facing time for this. So we'll see how it all goes down. Again, it's another instance, though, of is this the truth, or is this somebody just trying to cling on and get some money out of somebody they know has it?
Yeah, and it didn't just happen.
No.
This is an old case.
Which seems to be happening more and more lately.
Well, they always pop up a week or two before the draft, and then...
Well, I mean, yeah, and I think it's just I mean more in a sense of like athletes in general are having this happen a lot more lately because people are realizing that it works.
Mm-hmm.
And much like everybody kind of just believes that, oh, if they're going to court, it must be true. Let's be honest here. We've heard of stories of people burning themselves with hot coffee from McDonald's and suing McDonald's and winning.
Yep.
We've heard of people suing Red Bull because it didn't give them wings.
Yes, that was one of the funniest ones I've seen in a long time.
Come on, man.
But these types of cases, it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. And it seems if you're a famous person or a celebrity or whatever, it's
athletes specifically,
it's guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah.
So
I hate that. I hate that that's the way our society is moving. I'm not saying that this is a false statement at all. I'm not saying that he didn't do this. Again, we don't know the full story. But what I am saying is the world, and especially the internet, loves to run with these people are guilty. These people are guilty just because an accusation was brought up. If Andrew Schultz can be smart enough not to, condemn people on podcasts or on comedic situations until he gets the full story, so can you. And I don't mean that in a sense of Andrew Schultz is dumb. I mean that in the sense of Andrew Schultz makes fun of everybody in every situation with no holds barred. So if he can wait for the actual stuff to come out, so can you.
100%.
So let's wait on
and we
that.
work in the media. So, I mean,
Exactly.
that's usually what you wouldn't hear on a media type of show. But to wrap up before we get into the draft in the next segment, Joe Flacco.
He's back, baby.
He
is
back
in Cleveland.
He has signed a 1-year deal with the Cleveland Browns, a $4 million contract, but it is upward to $13 million with incentives.
Is he the starter, though, in Cleveland, you think? Because at this point right now, it's him or Kenny Pickett.
I would think.
I would think so, too.
But, I mean, I until I asked you this morning, I still thought Watson could be returning before kickoff.
No, from what I have read is that he will be most likely rehabbing his entire 2025 season to get through what he already says he retore his Achilles and on the right side. How he did that, I'm not sure. But at this point, I think his entire career is over, let alone his career in Cleveland.
And he came out yesterday and said that, there's a lot of doubters, but he feels like he's going to come back better than ever, which is not a very high limit.
Since we already talked about people getting attacked by sexual harassment things, this one is not one we are defending. Just so everybody knows, we are not defending Watson. He is a POS. This man is an absolute scumbag. Yes. I do not like him.
He's creepy.
The entire situation is ugly. He should be facing time for it if I'm being dead honest. But here we are. And that's a big reason why I think his career is over as well. No one wants to mess with this.
No
one wants to mess with that kind of issue. You know what I mean?
In the last segment of this hour, we'll wrap up some more NFL notes. And, we're 2 weeks away from the NFL draft as of yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll welcome back Bolt Brady at the top of the hour. We're talking Masters.
Do we have any questions for Bolt?
We do.
I mean, we have plenty of questions.
We actually do.
Do you all have questions for Bolt? Feel free to text them in right now, 661-842-2000. We'll get through all of them as Bolt Brady from Bolt Brady and his bro will be here at 8 o'clock from the Believe Network, BLEAV. Go check them out.
On the Early Bird Special right here on ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. And welcome back to the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That's Sparky. And Spark, before we get out of the NFL, there's a talking point that we brought up yesterday that has since had a little bit of a development. TJ Watt and the Steelers dealing with contract disputes, apparently. Now, TJ has 1 year left on his contract he's currently doing, does not want to play for
The
a
final year
team.
contract.
Yeah, he doesn't want to pay for a play on a 1 year contract. And from what we understand, from what we've researched and put up on our social media, the contract talks are not going well at all.
Yeah, he's not happy.
And most likely because they're not going to want to pay him upwards of $45 million because obviously Myles Garrett set the cap at $40 million. And TJ is a much more coveted player than Myles Garrett is. And I'm pretty sure there are 31 other NFL teams that will pay him $45 million to come play defensive end for them. However, the Watt family has been very avid about wanting to retire early to preserve their, bodies and stuff like that and not essentially live the rest of their days as CTE driven and ridden individuals. So could this be an early exit opportunity for TJ Watt, or could the Steelers potentially be wanting to move on from TJ? I highly doubt the latter is the case. However, we have a soundbite here that says that could potentially be the move for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Like the idea that you'd give up this piece, he's the cornerstone of your franchise.
But
floor's $40 million. I understand it's expensive,
right.
But absolutely no way in heck do they need that piece. You know what? This offense got by an above average quarterback play last year, and they still made the playoffs. You're going to upgrade that either way, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, whether it's somebody in the draft, because you have another weapon on the outside. And Arthur Smith's offense is kind of foolproof. It's run heavy. Like, you're insulated from a lot of things to where anything, a shred better than Russ is better than what they had last year. You don't need to have perfect quarterback play for this team to go further than they did last year.
Okay. First and foremost, I am not attacking Courtney Cronin at all. Or Cronin, I apologize. Courtney Cronin. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, every team needs a quarterback. And dude, and even with not camps, but workouts starting this week.
Right.
I did see a couple Steelers players that posted Instagrams that are like shaking their head because there's really no starting quarterback on the team right now. And going back to what you were saying, or opposite of what Courtney was saying, you can't just plug in a quarterback. We saw that last year.
No, that doesn't work all the time. You have to have the right quarterback to work for you. And honestly, it doesn't matter what quarterback you have in Pittsburgh if TJ Watt's not on the other side of the ball. So I agree with her on that point. No sense in trading TJ whatsoever. That is the best defensive player you've had in quite some time. And arguably, when he's not on the field, you lose football games on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. I would not necessarily say, though, that just plugging in anything better than Russ is going to get you to the top. It's not the case. I'm not 100% sold Aaron Rodgers will get you to the top. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of Pittsburgh in their fan base believe that either.
Totally agree. And, other quarterbacks that are either just recently got paid and there's been coaching changes like Trevor Lawrence. And, something we've talked about recently with the 49ers and, what are they going to do with Brock Purdy? A good clip that I heard yesterday with Carlin and Bart was talking about if there's any chance that they can trade TJ Watt for either Trevor or Purdy.
All right, I got to get up and walk around a little bit after that because that was utter crap in every single way. Are you kidding me? TJ Watt and the 21st pick for Brock Purdy? There is no chance that they're going to trade TJ Watt for two quarterbacks who are middle of the road. Middle of the road. That's what they are. Oh, my God.
I wouldn't necessarily call Trevor middle of the road. I could see why you would think that about Brock because we haven't seen anything out of him without like this stout offense around him. So maybe.
I'm glad you said that because that was one of the questions I wrote down to ask you. Because, yes, Trevor has gone through several different coaching and different systems. So that's going to stunt any type of quarterback that's trying to lead a team.
Absolutely.
And number two, Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, I don't know if people just think because he was the last pick in a draft that he is not as good as quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence. So you're looking at, say you're at a draft and you're looking at Purdy and you're looking at Trevor Lawrence, 99% of the time you're going with Trevor.
If we were going into the NFL draft tomorrow and Trevor was still out of Clemson and Brock was still out of Iowa State, yes, 100% I'd be taking Trevor
And
Lawrence.
see, that's why I think it's the difference of draft position.
Right.
I think Purdy's not getting as much love is because he was the last pick in that draft, but what he's done with players. And I also say, if it wasn't so an injury riddled season last year for Frisco and they finished, above 500 and weren't last place in the NFC West, he probably already got paid.
Well, I think the better way to put it, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, my friend, but it's more of the expectations. The expectations we had for Trevor were way higher than anything we ever had with Brock Purdy. Nobody even thought Brock would ever start. He was Mr. Irrelevant. But that's kind of the point.
But what he's done.
Right. But it's also a benefit of who he got drafted to. Again, we've seen it more in the last couple years than ever that where you get drafted really does determine if you're going to be a good player or not. And Brock Purdy benefited better than anybody in that draft class because you were Mr. Irrelevant. You came in behind a guy that was supposed to be the star in Trey Lance. Trey didn't work out. You got thrown in there on a whim because they needed a body, and you just were, I don't want to call him average because he wasn't average, but you showed that you were an above average quarterback that got looked over. And then everybody started realizing, oh, wow, Brock can lead a team, which is true. But also, we need to see what Brock can do without the Deebo Samuels, Brandon Ayuk's, Christian McCaffrey's, and George Kittle's of the world. Because I'm going to argue that Trevor Lawrence has still led a team to the playoffs, at least, with arguably nothing. What has Jacksonville given this guy? Nothing. Trevor Etienne is the best thing he's got, and he was his college running back, and he was hurt the rookie year, or his entire rookie year, and Brian Robinson had to come in, and then they gave up on him too.
That was a defensive team.
What would Khan done though? But not even then, because what did they do with AJ Boye and with Jalen Ramsey? Threw him away.
Yep.
What have the Jacksonville Jaguars done for Trevor Lawrence to make him better?
Just nothing. They've changed out coaches every other year.
Exactly.
And I believe if this round doesn't work with this round of coaches,
maybe he is headed for Pittsburgh.
Exactly.
And honestly, Mike Tomlin would be a much better coach for Trevor Lawrence, a much more sanctioned offense with Artie Smith if he ends up staying around that will actually have a run game and help him in the long run. So realistically, Trevor Lawrence could go that way. Trading TJ Watt for him, though, you're crazy. That is never happening. We'll be back on the other side of the break, though, with Bolt Brady from Bolt Brady and his bro. Texting your questions right now, 661-842-2000. You're listening to the Early Bird Special. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Early Bird Special right here on 101.1 FM, 1230 AM, ESPN Bakersfield. Also video streaming live on YouTube at the Early Bird Special. Go check it out. Go ahead and follow, send to your friends, all that good stuff. Real quick, before we get to our guy Bolt, I'll give you an update on the Masters Day 2. Justin Rose currently even through 7, sitting at 7 under 7. I apologize. Ludwig right underneath him, catching up at 5 under through 3. Bryson DeChambeau catching up as well at 4 under through 2. And let's see, Scotty Scheffler still yet to tee off, but we have plenty to talk about Masters-wise with our next guest. 25-year handicapper, top 5 win percentage. He's 3-0 on this show, just so you guys know. Our boy Bolt Brady's back. What's going on, sir? How are you?
What's happening, fellas? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you on this Masters Friday?
Oh, it's so awesome. I mean, I love it. It's so fun to watch.
I am a huge Masters guy. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a casual golf fan. I don't follow it too much outside of the majors. But there's just something about Masters Week that's different, right? Like it's just kind of above all the rest of the golf.
It totally is. It's because all the big name guys, they want to win it so badly that they all focus in.
And how do you feel about Justin's start? I mean, 7 under after day 1. It's not a bad way to start the day.
So here's an interesting fact. He actually set a Masters record. He's done this 6 times now where he's the leader after round 1.
Really? I was unaware of that. But now winning, though, after leading day 1 doesn't happen very often, right?
Well, it definitely hasn't happened for him, right?
Right. I mean, at this point, because that was one of our main questions from listeners this morning was how often does this happen? I mean, myself, what I can see, I know Spieth did it a couple years ago, but outside of that, it's only happened maybe 3 or 4 times. So the likelihood of him holding on.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I mean, Jack Nicklaus he did it because he's actually the one that held the record 5 times leading after round 1. But yeah, most of the time, here's a great stat for you guys. So 18 out of the last 19 Masters winners were within 4 strokes after day 1.
See, I think I saw that one because I was reading up on Scotty Scheffler and the fact that he was so close. They still believe he's going to come back and somehow pull off a lead here after day 2.
Oh, I would have to agree with that.
So, okay, so I did listen to a little bit of your guys' podcast, though, last night. I know you have a handful of golfers that you've already been looking into, especially on the fantasy side of this. What are your thoughts going into day 2? Who do you like?
Well, I like Scotty again. I mean, it's almost like it's Groundhog Day, right? Where Scotty's at the top of the leaderboard, and then Rory is up there, and then he falls back down, and he's not going to have a chance to win the jacket again. But there's a few guys that are probably off people's radar, like Langer, the senior German. This is actually his 41st Masters, and it's going to be his last one, and he is such a grinder. He tries so hard that he's a guy that I like to match up against people. And I had him on our podcast against Angel Cabrera, and he's blowing Angel out of the water right now. But he's a person that I like to watch. And then talking about Rory, going into the weekend, what typically happens is once he falls out of it and everyone's like, oh, Rory's not going to win this year, then he starts to relax. And over the weekend, he starts playing really well, even though he's out of it. He's not going to win, but he usually plays really well on Saturday and Sundays.
See, I brought that up that he usually he's notorious for having a much better Friday than he does on the day it actually begins. But you don't think he could actually edge his way back into this?
I mean, the statistics say no. And I mean, unless he just fired, something like a 9 or 10 under, which is highly unlikely. Yeah, he's out of it. There's too many guys ahead of him.
I have Bryson DeChambeau winning this whole dang thing, but then again, I'm a chaos-driven person. I would love to see a live golfer win the Masters and just blow the head of everybody in the PGA right now. But how likely do you see that actually happening? I know he's right now sitting at 4 under, tied for 3rd.
Right. So good call. Yeah, Bryson's balling, but he was actually the leader last year and fell down the leaderboard. So it's not his first rodeo at being at the top of the leaderboard after day 1, but he is playing good golf, and I think he should be at the end of it. I think he'll come down to one of the guys that has a chance as well.
Is there any like prop bets too that you look at during Masters week? I mean, I know there's like long shot bets and stuff like that. Do you dabble in any of that?
So that's a good question. No, because those are kind of like the needle in the haystack.
Uh-huh.
So the plays that you want to stick to are the yes nos. So will so and so make the cut? Yes or no. Those are going to give you the best odds and the best chances of winning. I mean, you can always throw a little bit on who's going to win it, but that's just so hard to do. And you can do top tens. I'll do some top tens, but yeah, I typically don't go any further than that. But I love doing head-to-head matchups. Those are great, and I do those before the tournament starts and on a daily basis.
And out of curiosity, just because I feel like it'd be easier to do it this way, but do you usually bet on the not making the cut or the he will make the cut?
I like saying that they won't make.
See, I am the same kind of thing. I feel like, I don't know. It's just like a first, like when I glance at a name, sometimes I'm sitting there saying, I don't know. And I feel like that's more likely to happen than actually being able to pick a winner. So
yeah, we had a listener that uses the Underground app.
Right.
And they kind of do the fantasy where you can use a certain amount of salary to pick, 3 or 4 golfers, and texted in the show and said that he was going with Scheffler, Bubba Watson, and Reed. So I'm hoping that, our listeners can make some side money. But if you had, the top 3, the opposite side, the top 3 to roll with a fantasy type draft, who would you go with?
So usually, so like on a daily basis like that, the thing, it sounds like that guy's going with all the live guys there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Scotty, I thought Scotty would do well, and I also thought Rahm would, but he's obviously not doing so hot. And then I think like someone like a Jordo, I think Jordo will actually continue to do well in the tournament. I mean, he's not going to win it, but I just like going for the grinders, even like a Keegan Bradley, guys that just really grind, even though, they might not be playing that well, they just keep grinding through the tournament. Because a lot of players kind of like, once they find out they're out of it, you can tell their game starts to slip a little bit. So I like the grinders.
And then real quick, before we get into your pick for the weekend, I have to ask you, what were your final thoughts on the NCAA final, since you obviously went 3-0 with us, and who did you have in the final out of Houston and Florida?
Well, I had Houston, so I didn't like that final. I mean, 4 turnovers in the last 4 possessions was just ridiculous.
Ridiculous. I have to agree.
I lost that tournament right at the end. And, something that we brought up on the show. So I was doing some prep. We do a Trivia Tuesday on our Tuesday show. So I was just, watching the game, having a brew, and I was wondering, okay, well, if the Houston coach ends up winning, he'd be the oldest coach to win a tourney. And I was just Googling on my phone, who is the oldest now? Like, who would he surpass in that record? And my Google AI told me, well, Houston's coach would have been the top, but they already lost. They lost to Florida in 2025. There was 8 minutes left in that game when it told me that. So I was like, oh, man, do I need to change the channel already? Did AI already ruin it for me? And sure enough, they choked at the end. So I was bummed. I had a coworker that had Florida, so I ended up choking at the end.
I couldn't believe Cryer. I've got 2 younger boys, and I said, listen, the best player always takes the last shot. And he was dribbling up the court, and then he passed it. I was like, what's he doing? And he couldn't get it back, and you saw what happened. Couldn't even get a shot up. It was terrible.
And, I still give kudos to Condon and a lot of those guys at Florida for playing defensively in the second half. But I need to know what the hell that head coach gets under them during halftime, because the last 2 games against Auburn and against Houston, they came out flatter than hell and somehow end up winning the entire thing. So I'm not sure. But and then real quick, I know you got a couple picks for us for the weekend. What do you got?
Well, so tonight the Nuggets play Memphis in Denver, and Memphis actually just had a barn burner with Minnesota last night. They actually lost, but that game went up and away. But tonight, very next night, they have to travel into Denver, and the over-under is 244.5, and that's a lot of points. And the Nuggets will run a little bit, but they'll also slow it down. So I like the under in that. Things have to go perfect for that to go over. So I like the Nuggets under 244.5. And then as far as the weekend goes, too, kind of touched on it, look for Rory in matchups, because once the pressure's off of him winning the tournament, he really does well later on. And like I said, Langer as well, the senior German, he's a grinder. Look for him in the matchups also.
And then real quick before I let you go, because since you brought up the Denver Nuggets, I have to ask, how does this entire situation with them determine how you go about your betting? Because obviously with the firing of coaches between both of those teams, Memphis and Denver, does that like affect you at all in your choices?
No, and that's a great question. But no, I mean, these guys are professionals. So, you know, for them to lose a coach, they've all been around that before. There's trades with players, and you know, they might think about it for a half second, but the next thing you know, it's playoff time, and they all want to win the championship. So it'll be business as usual. So I don't think it affects anything when it comes to placing bets.
Okay, fantastic. Well, friend,
I'm a big basketball fan, so as the playoffs start next week, we'll definitely be talking to you.
Oh, actually, do we have any text for him? I forgot.
We do, and this one is from a financial side of it. So let me grab this real quick. He says, you know, as someone who makes profitable sports bets, does he face limits from sports books out in Vegas? And how do you work around those types of things?
That's a good question. So Circa, which is, they pride themselves on not saying no to anyone. So
of course.
So they deal with higher limits. And so, and so you can get around it with certain casinos, and Circa being one of them.
That's fantastic. There's
Well,
got to be somebody in Vegas that doesn't
of course,
give a damn,
nobody's
right?
going to turn down money.
Right.
Well, this is Bolt Brady. We appreciate it. Check him out, boltbradyandbro.com. Plus, his podcast is available on all major podcast platforms. And going into the NBA playoffs, we'll definitely be talking to you very soon. We appreciate your time, and have a good weekend, brother.
All right, take care, fellas.
Thanks, man. Have a good day.
Well, let's dive right back into the NBA when we get back. Plus, we have a couple of NFL stories that we could wrap up to, and we'll wrap up this show with what we're watching and the SmackDown preview a bit later before we call it a weekend, right here on the Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. was at the McAfee show too. At
Was
the
he?
McAfee Big Night app. He was one of the special guest appearances. Welcome back to the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That's Sparky. That's obviously Snoop D-O-double-G. Arguably the best West Coast rapper of all time.
Whoa.
Arguably.
Whoa.
Arguable.
Arguably.
Definitely
He's
the
up
most
there.
loved.
He's up there.
He's the most beloved. Let's be honest. But while we get into this, my friend, we already talked a little NBA with Bolt, so let's go down the standings and whatnot and give you guys an update on that with the NBA playoffs right around the corner. Let's look at the games last night. The Pistons outlasted the Knicks 115-106. Pacers outlast the Cavaliers without their starters 114-112. Hawks beating the Nets 133-109. Bucks beating the Pelicans 136-111. And Timberwolves destroying the Grizzlies 141-125.
Anthony Edwards is on fire.
No defense in that game whatsoever. Dang ever.
No.
But I mean, hey, the lowest score yesterday was 106. So that's just where the NBA is these days. At this point, though, my friend, we've been talking about it all week long. The West is still clogged, and everybody from seed 4 to seed 8 needs every win possible in order to stay alive. Currently, the Nuggets and the Clippers are tied for 4th and 5th at 48 and 32. The Warriors, Memphis Grizzlies, and Minnesota Timberwolves all tied from 6 all the way down to 8 at 47 and 33. And at this point, I believe there's 3 games remaining in the season, if I'm not mistaken, my friend.
For most teams, yeah.
And I have to say, if it ends today, obviously the Golden State Warriors narrowly escape the play-in tournament, but I do not want to be Memphis if you have to take on the Timberwolves after last night's affair, because dropping 140 points on you and Anthony Edwards is getting hot at the right time, we might see another incredible playoff run from the Timberwolves and Anthony Edwards.
And that's a perfect setup, because Q Myers was talking about which team, and preferably Golden State, is a team that shouldn't want to play in that play-in.
They're the last team that want to be in the play-in tournament. That's bad business for them. Steph Curry doesn't need to be playing any more minutes than he already is. He's dropping 37 for them just to get to 111 points. He's got to play so much. Their offense just looks like it gets bogged down. It's like traffic here in Vegas, right on the 215. So he's got to be out there. He doesn't need to be playing it anymore. He needs to be secured in the playoffs so he can get ready for a run, whatever that run's going to look like. Them playing extra games is the last thing they want to do. Let the Timberwolves play extra games. They're young cats.
I mean, at this point, he's right, but
I really hope they play the Lakers.
I don't think they're the last team that wants to be in that play-in, though. I still ride with, I feel like Memphis wants to be the last team to be in that play-in situation just because of everything going on in their organization as a whole. And I think Golden State's hot right now. As much as they lost that last game, I think they're at least trending in the right direction.
Well, they're definitely figuring things out in a good time. But it is the best time to watch basketball if you're not watching. A lot of fans that I know wait until the playoffs start, but usually it's the week before the playoffs start, to see who's getting hot, especially if you're making these daily bets. You want to know who's playing and
who's hot and who's not.
Don't just look at the team and say, okay, it's the Cavs, I got to take them, when half their starters are sitting.
Well, actually, all of the starters are sitting outside of Jared Allen. The only reason Jared Allen's still playing is I think they want him to play all 82 games to give him.
But I did hear
moniker.
their coach say that they might get some minutes in the next couple games just because he doesn't want him going in straight cold.
Yeah.
But I prefer to see the Warriors and Lakers just because it'll be a hell of a matchup. But like you had said, Memphis or the Timberwolves, I want to see who these teams line up, because really in the West it's really going to come down to the matchups before I can really decide on who do you think is going to go to the West and who's going to take it in the East.
Well, at this point, Denver, like Bolt said, will be at home against the Memphis Grizzlies. That's a huge game tonight to see playoff seeding. Golden State is headed to Portland to take on the Trailblazers and hopefully secure a win to separate themselves as well. The Sacramento Kings will be at home taking on the Clippers, and the Lakers, your Lakers, will be at home taking on the young Rockets. Whether the Lakers play most of their stars all game, we will see, because I think they're in the same boat as everybody else. They want to kind of get 1 or 2 games of rest for their stars like Luka and LeBron to prep them for the playoffs next week. I personally think you need this win, though, just to solidify something over the number 2 seed, because a good momentum builder against that team would go far here headed into the playoffs.
And
So,
most of the teams in the East are pretty locked in. You know, with the Bulls getting the win over the Heat the other night, that keeps them a game ahead and the tiebreaker. So really, the only way is really Chicago is one game behind Atlanta, and so it'll be. It looks like everything is pretty set for the East, just depending on the Bulls and Atlanta. With only 2 or 3 games left, you know, the Pistons are 4 games up on the 7 with the Magic, and I'm looking forward to it.
And the Pacers are chasing their first 50-win season in quite some time too. They could potentially get that in the next couple of days. So we'll see how this entire season ends.
And it wouldn't be NBA talk if we didn't mention Ja.
Exactly. I was really trying to avoid this again, but Ja Morant's at it again. Technically, he's moved on from the gun. I'll let you know that. At least he's not flashing a gun-like salute, but now he's moved on to grenades. Yes, grenades. He's tossing grenades as a celebration now. And honestly, I
don't have a problem with it.
I don't either. You know what? It's actually kind of clever. I'm not gonna lie. It's like, dude, I live for this kind of sarcasm. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I would do this. If someone told me you can't do that, okay, fine. I'm just gonna move on to the next weaponry. But what's next? Bazookas? You're gonna go with RPGs if they tell you can't do a grenade now? Like what? Because that's essentially what he said. But I mean, let's hear what Chris Canty had to say talking about Ja Morant yesterday.
He's proven that he's committed to being a clown. And when you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. You have all of the elements to be a good team, but you're not a good team. And it's in part because your best player has a maturity issue. You're asking me if it rubs me the wrong way. Yes, it does. But I'm not going to keep saying it because it's not going to make a difference. It doesn't matter. Everybody that's tried to get through to Ja to curb the behavior that we've seen on and off the court hasn't been able to do it. So at this point, if he don't care, I don't care.
Now, I agree and disagree with him. I do agree this is a clown move. And, you know, as he said, stupid games get stupid prizes. Now, I don't think the Memphis Grizzlies are a bad team because of Ja Morant's issues with his maturity. I think that is an issue for Ja that he has to get over in a personal sense. But I think the Memphis Grizzlies have a lot more issues than just Ja Morant. And Ja is just, at this point, the scapegoat for them because the front office can't figure out what they want to do with the head coach. So I think that there's plenty more issues for Memphis to really worry about. And I have to agree with you, Sparky. Whatever. At this point, like, you're not going to change this kid. He just wants to go home to play GTA, apparently.
It's like goes right back to Tyreek and Fortnite.
And, you know, I think eventually he'll wise up, like he really will. But I just think right now everybody pushing against him and essentially calling him an idiot for doing this type of stuff is why he's doing it now.
Yep, feeding him.
He's just, again, I go back to the adage of this is the troubled youth that just looks at you with something in his hand and you tell him, don't you drop that. And he drops it because you tell him not to.
You know he's going to do it.
He's doing it for, no, I don't want to say he's doing it for attention, but he's doing it because you're giving him so much attention.
Yeah, you don't want it, so he's going to give it to you.
Exactly. So just don't give him attention for it. Now, I do think the NBA needs to step in, as I said yesterday, and do something because now he's just making you look bad.
Yeah, now he's just,
as a parent, now you look bad.
But to wrap up the NBA, something that popped up in when I was doing some research, you know, we talked a lot about Melo making the first ballot Hall of Famer, known for his scoring prowess. But Dwight Howard is also upon that list. And, you know, in the NBA, when you make it to the Hall of Fame, it's like a must that you bring up an existing Hall of Famer when you walk down that big aisle and, you know, talk to your peers. And on Thursday, he announced that he will have 5 presenters. One of them was his former opponent, Kevin Garnett, which one of my favorites. 3 others were legendary big names, Hakeem Olajuwon, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and my favorite, Dennis Rodman. But the shocking one will be Shaq. And, you know, him and Shaq got into it over the years.
The Superman situation.
Over the Superman, where he came out in the slam dunk contest dressed as Superman. And
okay, but Shaq's got to let that go. Because
you know Shaq.
I know. Don't get me wrong. I know he's never going to let it go. It's his nickname, and I totally get that. But, like,
I mean, he's got it tattooed on his arm.
you could still be the Man of Steel and he could be Superman. I mean, there's more than one Superman. We
Yes.
got Henry Cavill now. We got what's the new guy's name? I don't even know the new guy's name in the James Gunn movie, but regardless, you got multiple Supermen. We can make this work. It's okay.
I just thought it was kind of cool that they said they're gonna bury the hatchet and do it that right way. The other people that we haven't announced that are also in the 2025 Hall of Fame: Sue Bird, a legendary point guard with a long and successful career in the WNBA.
Absolutely.
Sylvia Fowles, the Maya Moore, a two-time national champion at UConn,
Fantastic player, in her own right.
four-time WNBA champion with the Minnesota Lynx.
Mhm.
The 2008 USA Men's Olympic team, which
Finally.
is called the Redeem Team,
Finally.
who won gold. And other notable inductees: Billy Donovan, the current Bulls coach, successful college coach with later coached with the Bulls. Danny Crawford, a well-known NBA referee. Is that the I want to say it was, I'm going to age myself, so I shouldn't even bring it up, but there was an old NBA based type movie where a referee
Was the main
the main character. And I believe that was, I can already see Kerr slamming down his coffee and be,
Right.
"You idiot.
It's this movie."
But
I'm sorry.
I want to say it was Forget Paris or something like that. But I believe Danny Crawford was in that movie. And then lastly, Mickey Arison, the owner of the Miami Heat. So, we went in deep with the Carmelo a couple days ago because obviously being a first ballot Hall of Famer.
And arguably the greatest pure scorer the basketball world has ever seen.
Oh, God.
Greatest. No, I'm just kidding. No, I do think Melo to me kind of like it mimics Barkley just because it's one of those what could have been situations. Because I really want to know what people would think of him if he actually won a ring. Like he himself, though, like with Denver, instead of maybe going somewhere and winning one. Because it's different when he's ring chasing compared to when you lead a team to go in a ring.
Well, I saw a conversation, I believe it was Rich Eisen after our show last week, and they were talking about, can you imagine if Bosch and Melo would have swapped in the picks?
Oh, Miami would have been a
Melo would have got
whole different monster. Like, don't get me wrong, Chris Bosch is a very, very talented big man, and probably would have joined him regardless. Oh, good
That's
Lord.
what I think every time I see Bosch.
Well, he did play for the Raptors for a long time,
as well as he should have.
Probably the great. Well, would you say he's probably the best Raptors player ever, next to Vince Carter?
Probably next to Vince Carter.
I think him and Vince be 1A, 1B. I mean, I guess you could say Kawhi Leonard since Kawhi won them a title, and Kyle Lowry too. But regardless, that team would have been a much bigger headache if Melo decided to go instead of Bosch. And I think that was actually the plan. I think the original plan was to get the Banana Boat team, Chris Paul included, in Miami. But
I could see that.
Honestly, Chris Paul had the entire situation with the Lakers, and Lakers fans don't want to go back into that road because God knows that's why they wanted David Stern fired. But at this point, it's a what if game, like what could have happened. I still am very happy to see people like Maya Moore, Sue Bird, and Dwight Howard making into the Hall of Fame this year because all of them are well deserving. Dwight, although gets a lot of hate, definitely well deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He's easily one of the most prolific and talked about big men of the last couple generations. So I don't like, this was a cakewalk for me, in my opinion, but I don't know. What say you, my friend?
I mean, I'm glad that he got in. The Dwight Howard thing, I wasn't a big fan of Dwight Howard, whether it was Orlando or other teams he bounced around with.
Again, when you think of Orlando's run, even dethroning LeBron, because remember, they were the team that really gave Cleveland fits when LeBron was at the height in Cleveland before he left. So
first time,
Rashard Lewis, I mean, who else was on that team? Oh, Hito Turkoglu was a freaking monster. Loved that guy. But yeah, no, dude, Dwight Howard, when you really think about it, when you think about the big men of the last couple generations, at least, including Shaq's generation, I don't know a lot of big men that could have hung with them outside of guys like Shaq. Because Dwight had such bounce and such a power underneath that it was really hard to deal with him. And I don't know a lot of players that played against guys like Shaq that really would have been able to hold up against a guy like Dwight. He's just too athletic.
Well, we had a listener said, did you guys just really forget about Tracy McGrady?
T-Mac. Oh, my Lord. I forgot T-Mac played for. Well, okay. Again, in my defense, T-Mac, we all
Orlando.
remember. Yeah, I always think either Orlando or Houston. I honestly more think Houston than anything.
I
But
totally forgot about he played in Toronto.
Yeah, I did. And honestly, but because the only reason I put Vince Carter up there, because Vince Carter's days are more with New Jersey than they are with Toronto. So the only reason I remember Vince Carter is because of all the pictures of him dunking when he was younger.
Yeah. And when the Raptors came upon, that's who.
I'm just saying, like, when you really see a T-Mac jersey, which one are you really looking at?
I like the Orlando one.
I personally say the Rockets. I would say his time in Houston was the most prolific time in his career. But it really just depends when you caught on to Tracy McGrady, I guess. But that is a good poll, though. That's a very, very good poll.
Yes,
I did
well
forget
done.
about that. But let's go to a break real quick, Sparky, and pay some bills. On the other side, we got some NFL draft talk to get to. I have some personal thoughts about this draft. I'm going to bounce off of you, my friend. Like, is this draft kind of feeling a little mid to you in terms of momentum and in terms of the players that are on the board to draft? We'll get into that on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Early Bird Special at 101.1 FM, 12:30 a.m. ESPN Bakersfield, and streaming video online at YouTube at the Early Bird Special. I'm getting Lincoln Park song a little early today. Fantastic. Welcome back to the Early Bird Special. I'm Chris Burdick. That's Sparky. Sparky, we got a lot to talk about in the world of the NFL, so we got to dive back in, my friend. And I presented this question to you before, so I'll get your answer before we dive into everything. But is it just me, or does this season or off season kind of feel a little mid to you?
Yeah.
Kind of like just lackluster compared to what we usually get.
It's either that or I just haven't watched enough Mel Kiper. But it seems like every day it's Shador this, Shador that.
Gotta miss Todd McShay.
Cam this, Shador that. And I think it's kind of a setup for a lot of these players if they aren't, Pro Bowlers the first rookie or the first season. It just seems it's a lot of talk with Shador
Right.
and Cam.
And
I know there's some big defensive players that I think are going to just be day one starters.
Fantastic running backs as well in this draft if your team needs one.
And that's another thing, which I know we're not going to get into Ginty again, but I did hear something on the way in this morning is they're looking at him as more of a if he lands in Vegas, that it's probably a reach. It's somebody, with the Raiders needing so many different holes to fill, it kind of seems like a shot in the foot for drafting a running back that early.
Honestly, it is. And you can get I don't want to say as good of a running back in later rounds, but you can get a quality running back in this draft in late rounds. So that's kind of my point, is that there's a lot of situations where players themselves are talked about more often because there's not a lot to talk about in this draft. I'm specifically talking about Cam and Shador because we all know where Cam is going. Cam Ward is going number 1. He's going to Tennessee. We've been hearing it all week. I've played multiple sound bites for you. I'm about to play another one. And this is exactly what they think in Tennessee when they hear Cam Ward. So let's hear from Dan Burglar, who was on with Colin Cowherd's show yesterday. Not with Cowherd. It was with James Mac. Oh, I cannot remember the guy's name, but it's for his fill-in host. And let's hear what he has to say about Cam being the Titans guy.
He has the arm. He has the elusiveness in the pocket, so he can create time for himself, go make plays down the field. So a lot of what you want in an NFL quarterback, Cam Ward offers. And he's still just 22 years old. So you think about by the time he's 24, 25, if he continues to grow at this trajectory, I think you're feeling pretty positive about the return on investment by taking him number 1. Because if he didn't go number 1, I promise you he would go number 2 to Cleveland or number 3 to the Giants. So you can understand where the Titans come to the conclusion that Cam Ward is their guy.
Cam ain't falling out of the top 3, as he just said, and I agree with that 100%. But this is the point I'm trying to make. There's maybe, Sparky, 4 people in this draft you'll say that'll be absolute locks. That'd be Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and honestly, probably Campbell, the tackle from Michigan.
Yes, that's what I was hoping you didn't miss that one.
No, those are the only 4 that I can honestly say are the top 4 guys that will most likely be studs out of this draft. Everybody else, it's a toss-up, Shador included.
I think if Cleveland goes with Hunter, I think we're probably going to be right on target. Is if Shador gets by New Orleans, I think Cleveland gets back in the mix and, teams him up with Shador.
And that's a possibility that is growing in people's minds right now, that he could fall out of the first round. I know we have a soundbite from him, but I first want to hear again from Dane about what the other teams are thinking about Shador, because this is why this entire mindset of people thinking he's going to fall is coming about. So let's hear from Dane first.
I wonder about the way he likes to play. Does he have the physical traits to get away with that in the NFL? I mean, the offensive line was bad. There's no question about it at Colorado. But there are a lot of times where he is running himself into sacks and he's not making the right decision from the pocket. And so there's things about his profile that really, I think he can start in the NFL, but is he really going to uplift everybody around me and carry a franchise?
That is the problem that everybody is seeing. He plays a lot like Caleb Williams does, but not with the same physical attributes that Caleb Williams has.
Where he tries to plays
to make magic. Yeah, he tries to play hero ball, for lack of a better word.
Well, he'll learn quick.
That's the issue that a lot of teams are seeing, and that I am seeing with Shador as well. I like Shador I don't love him, but I like him. I think he could be a solid starter in the NFL, just as Dane says in this interview. I agree with him 100% on that. Will he be a star? I don't know. I have no idea, to be honest with you. And it's only because I have to see if this game that he likes to play will transition, because we saw with Caleb, didn't for him. And as we just got done saying in the first hour, Sparky, depending on where he goes, is if this game is going to win. Because if he ends up with a team like Pittsburgh, his game might work, because Pittsburgh's offense works for a mobile quarterback and honestly has a solid offensive line that can protect him much better than at Colorado.
And I saw a story through Field Yates yesterday saying he has the 5 worst NFL fits for Shedeur. And of course, the Saints were number 4, Rams were number 3, the Jets are number 2, and guess who's number 1?
Browns.
Pittsburgh.
What?
He thinks it's a horrible fit for Pittsburgh and Shedeur.
Yeah.
And I really don't see Pittsburgh drafting a quarterback. I think they're going to sit and wait. And we've gone back and forth for the last week or two. I believe they're going to wait on Rodgers, and I think Cousins is probably their best bet if Rodgers decides not to go to Pittsburgh. I think they've kind of tinkered back and forth with some of these rookies. I know the what's the other Dart. I think Dart might be a perfect fit for Pittsburgh, but depending on, you know, who gets by the Saints, who gets by some of these other teams like Cleveland that need a quarterback, even though the Cleveland signed Flacco this morning. But let's hear from Shedeur and how he feels going into this draft and where he thinks he, you know, isn't a top pick.
Why would I be mad? I swear, nah, you gotta understand. I think about it like this. These are good problems to have.
I completely agree.
You could be in a way worse situation, you know. So being number 1, that don't really matter to me at the end of the day.
I like that.
That don't matter to me because I could go number 1, but it may not be a fit, you know. Or I could go number 2 and it be a fit. Or I could go number 3 and it be a fit, you know. So it's all about fit. It don't matter. Either any situation you're going into is not going to be the best situation.
Yeah.
The numbers of it don't really matter. I ain't caught up on that.
See, that's the mindset of a guy who I can genuinely see saying no to a team drafting him.
Yes.
Like, I know we talk about that every year, like, oh, this guy could potentially, or Caleb Williams could have said no to the Bears. Most guys are not going to say no when you call them and say, we want to take you in our first round draft pick. And he's also speaking about not going number 1 overall. He doesn't care that he's not going to Tennessee. That's why he canceled his workout with Tennessee. He knew Tennessee didn't want him like that, and Tennessee knew they didn't want him like that. They wanted Cam, so it fits. But I don't know if he says no to a team like the Raiders or a team like the Saints. I think he should say no to the Saints, because I agree with Yates when he says that they're a bad fit for him, because right now they have nobody to protect him. And you're just going to run into the similar problems that the Bears had this year. I would say, again, I think Pittsburgh, whom he did just go meet up with the Pittsburgh camp, I believe yesterday, and said it was a fantastic meetup. I genuinely believe that is a good lockup for him, or Pittsburgh moves up. I'm not sold that Pittsburgh wants Aaron Rodgers. I'm really not.
That would make more sense, because they are losing faith. A lot of their fans are like, what in the hell are we doing?
Exactly. And not a lot of the fans that I've talked to want anything to do with Aaron Rodgers either.
Same here.
And
that's been the majority. We don't want him. We don't want him.
I've stood on this fact, but I think Aaron is going to retire. I just genuinely feel with the moves that he's making, what he's doing right now, he's better off retired, man. Just go, or either that or wait it out, I guess, and see if anybody picks you up mid-season. But I don't know what he's going to do. I would expect some sort of announcement here in the next coming weeks, though, with the draft around the corner. I do believe that what happened with him in Green Bay with the Jordan Love signing is a major factor why he does this now.
And that's the same thing. I don't see the Jets drafting a quarterback that early, because I don't think they want to stunt on Fields, especially with a new coaching crew coming in. And I just don't see that being a good look.
And you don't, you like the Justin Fields contract is different than, say, Kirk Cousins' contract with Atlanta, because Justin Fields is a young up and coming quarterback that could potentially still be a starter. So I don't see them bailing on that right away. Now, do the Jets pick up, say, a Jackson Dart, Will Howard, Jalen Milroe, 2nd, 3rd, 4th round? Sure.
And that's another weird one. I know you brought it up earlier, but the Milroe going to the draft just seems
doesn't
weird.
fit. It just doesn't work.
Seems weird. And I think it'll be a meme before the end of the draft of him just sitting there wondering, why am I not getting picked yet?
Well, and that's a bad look for the draft every year.
Right.
Every year you're going to have a guy sitting in the back green room just looking like he's the worst in the world. Like, okay, we get it. You want the Disney type comeback story, but how often do those actually happen? And at this point right now, if you're just going to keep embarrassing people, it's just going to turn people off to the entire idea.
Yeah, it's a bad look. But we'll wrap up this week. Right after this break, we'll talk a SmackDown preview. I'll have Burdick bring up a Masters standings list as of right now. Plus, what are we watching? And if you have anything to say or bring up before we wrap up this week, text in 661-842-2000. The Early Bird Special, ESPN Bakersfield, 12:30 a.m.
101.1 FM. You want to know something funny?
He's going on me.
I hate this song.
Me too.
I hate this
And I hate the whole 20 minutes that it takes for him to get to the ring.
You know what? For those of you who don't know, this is the popular theme song of a very, very popular wrestler known as Cody Rhodes, son of Dusty Rhodes, for you old school heads out there that love wrestling. Yes.
He has come back to WWE in the last couple of years and has taken the world by storm, obviously. But I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the song.
There's a few of them I really don't like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a whole different topic that we should really have KG in here for, because him going off on the entrance song is one of the funniest things that I've ever witnessed. And we've never done it on camera, and I need to do that. Actually, we need to make a whole video on that. But
I got to throw out some love real quick. Fred Ottman, the old Tugboat. If you're an old WWF wrestler, before they dropped the F, I grew up watching Tugboat before he was Typhoon and Earthquake with the natural disasters.
And see, I told you I should have done that on the stream. I knew I should have pulled those cards on stream.
But Burdick popped open a pack of these new Topps
I did.
WWE cards and pulled a autographed Tugboat, which is a Typhoon card.
Right.
So a big shout out to Fred Ottman, because not only did he pull the autographed card on during the show yesterday, but he was announced that he was going to be the class of the Hall of Fame this year. So
it's kind of cool to have
awesome.
that go full circle. And obviously, we did post it on our social media, and he did reach out. So we hope that he is listening right now. And we are very thankful that you reached out, sir, and hope to talk to you before the fame, if that is possible.
How are the Masters looking?
Oh, that's true. Let me give you an update real quick. I apologize. The Masters currently sit. Let's see. Justin Rose back down to 8 under through 10. My guy, Bryson DeChambeau, 3 under on the day, 6 under altogether through 6. Ludwig Aberg back down to even, so he's at 4 under through 6 as well. Connors and Scheffler still yet to tee off. They won't tee off until about 9:30, 10 o'clock today. Let's see. McCarty, Hojarg, and Fitzpatrick, as well as Im and Hatton, are all tied at 6th at 3 under, and then the rest of the board go down from there. Let's see where Rory is. Rory's making a little bit of a comeback. That's good to see. 1 under through 6, so potentially dodging that cut line that still is sitting at, now it is projected at 1 over. So that is actually right under, a couple strokes underneath Rory, but good signs that he has turned it around so far in day 2. So he could potentially squeak out of this top 50 cut. Other names that are potentially under the cut line, you got Max Homa. Looks like Johnson most likely will be cut as well if he continues upon this route. They're both 10 and 9 through. Brooks Koepka also underneath the line. Will Zalatoris. It looks like Langer, the guy that our boy Bolt Brady, also in danger, but he has not teed off yet, so he may tee off here momentarily, as well as John Rahm and Chris Kirk, the other guy that I told you you may want to keep an eye out for. Phil Mickelson, though, under that line has yet to start, so we will hopefully see him dodge it as well. But the line will most likely change throughout the day. Don't expect it to stay at 1 over. It'll probably be closer to 2 over, if not 3, depending on how far away Rose and DeChambeau can take the leaderboard. So,
and you'll see the leaderboard, posted on our Instagram and our Facebook. Just look up the Early Bird Special official on all social media platforms. SmackDown tonight.
Yes, for you wrestling fans, SmackDown will be live from its usual time at 5 o'clock on USA Network, live from Seattle, Washington, in the Climate Pledge Arena. The only things that they have scheduled so far is that you will hear from Cody Rhodes as this entire thing with John Cena comes to a boil. There will be a second match for the popular luchador Rey Fenix as he takes on Berto of the Legado del Fantasma, as I keep stumbling over my words.
Try saying that a few times.
I know.
Jeez.
And I believe you will see Damian Priest against Drew McIntyre tonight as well, as they prepare for that to become a WrestleMania match as well.
I'd expect something with RKO.
Yeah, and some sort of answer to that, because we as the show went out last week, the general manager took an RKO from Randy Orton after being told that his match at WrestleMania has been canceled thanks to an injury to his opponent Kevin Owens. So what we will see come out of that, I am not sure.
I know
he's already paid for the RKO technically in money. If you want to go back to it, he gave him $100,000 last time. I don't know what he's expecting, but unless he ups the fee. Maybe. God only knows.
Well, I would think we'd hear something, because I mean, with WrestleMania starting next weekend, which we'll talk KG next week about, but it looks like they're trying to, finalize and lock in these final matches. So I would expect they're not going to do that the week of WrestleMania.
No, usually they're all set and ready to go by week of, because they like to promote most of these. But I mean, there is still room on the card. I expect to see at least 1 or 2 tag team titles be announced. Maybe tonight.
The gauntlet is tonight.
The gauntlet is tonight for the women's side. I would expect either the Street Profits against the Machine Guns being one, or the War Raiders against the New Day being the other. It really just depends which one they want to go with.
Well, we wrap up every week with what are you watching? Is that what you're watching? Besides that and Masters?
For that, Masters and a little bit more of the Celtic City documentary because I got held away with AEW last week. Didn't get to dive into that.
I finished the second season of Invincible, and I will take the bullet. I'm going to go see Minecraft later today.
Oh, God. Thank you.
I'll tell you how bad it is.
Doing that,
or
I
good.
Don't want to. I do not want to see
well,
that.
Enjoy your weekend. Thanks for joining us. The Early Bird Special. I'm Sparky.
I'm Burdick. We'll see you guys next week, 7 to 9 a.m. right here on ESPN Bakersfield.